State Warriors one. I got one after game one, and it was like, told you.
Oh, no. See, you're reading way more into that. I just simply gave you a text saying this is going to be a long series, like, told you. Like, I picked Boston.
When did I say it wasn't going to be a long series? No, you wanted to say.
Because you and Riker were all in with Golden State, and rightfully so. I want Stephen Curry to win, get his fourth, get the Finals MVP, which he's on track to do, and we talked about entering a different door in terms of the great players. He would be a part of that.
Okay.
But I just felt the way Boston has been playing that's why I was going with Boston.
No, this is revision.
You think I was trying to like rub it in?
Yes, you were. You went, told you. You told me what? It was going to, I never said it wasn't going to be a long series. I never said that. I just said I picked Golden State at the beginning of the year, Reggie, not at the start of the NBA Finals.
That's not my job to pick who's going to. That's your job.
No, that's your job. You're an analyst.
I'm an analyst. I'm not. No. That's like playing favorites. I don't play favorites. I call it like I see it. And I was just assessing both teams at this particular time and what Boston has done to get to the NBA Finals, going through Brooklyn, going through the champs, Milwaukee, going through Miami. I just think the momentum has kind of shifted towards them. And that's not to discredit anything Golden State has done, because they've been great. I'm just looking at it.
It just felt like I told you. That's all. Like I didn't hear.
And by the way, how do you like this name? Since you're talking about meats, Reginald Aloysius Mutton.
Mutton.
That's my new name. Reginald Aloysius Mutton.
So if we had a meat name, you would be.
If we had a meat name,
Mutton.
I would be Mutton.
Mutton. Fritzy, what's yours?
I was going to be Toddy Salami.
Toddy Salami.
Toddy Salami. I like Reginald Aloysius Mutton better. Mutton.
Okay, what do you expect to happen tonight in Boston?
What's interesting is, as a former player, when a series is tied 1-1, game 3, and when a series is tied 2-2, game 5 are always the most interesting, because you pretty much know what each team is going to do. Obviously, there'll be wrinkles, there'll be adjustments, but you pretty much have a game plan of how both teams were playing. And the one thing that will always stand out in this series, and you hear both coaches preaching this, which team can be more physical, the physicality. And it's interesting how, you hear the whole Draymond Green, Cedric Maxwell, the 80s, 90s, today's basketball, the way the game is officiated during the regular season, they want freedom of movement, touch fouls, a lot of replay. And when we get to the playoffs, it reverts back to the 80s and 90s. The officials don't want to be responsible for all these calls. They make it much more physical. So it's funny how during the regular season, they let these guys run around, shoot threes and all that. Come playoff time, there's more holding, there's more hitting. It's much more physical. So whatever team can be more physical, it was Golden State's turn to hit first. And that's what they did in game 2 to even up this series. To me, going forward, which team can be more physical consistently?
Well, and I'm listening to Draymond. He's a student of the game, but when he talks about, they talk about how physical it was back in the day. And the thing is they were physical with the best players. The greatest player was roughed up more than anybody, and Michael Jordan with the Pistons. They allowed that to happen. They would never let that happen now. They would never let you beat up on Luka. They would never let you beat up on the Greek Freak. They would stop it immediately. So when Draymond talks about that, yes, there are a couple of enforcers, but there were a lot of guys on the receiving end of those enforcers. And that's what I think he's got wrong. Draymond would have been great back in the 80s and 90s.
Yes, he would. Because he is let's face it, he talks the talk, but he walks it as well. And he's not afraid to put his body on the line, and he's not afraid to challenge his teammates as well as the opponents. But it's hard to compare eras because there's different rules from the 80s, the 90s, and obviously the 2000s. So I understand where he's coming from. But I will say this. I know he was kind of taking shots at Cedric Maxwell. Cedric Maxwell was a baller back in the day, and I don't think he's giving Cedric enough credit on his type of game, because saying that he would have been bullied, no, that's not the case, because Cedric Maxwell, he could talk the talk and walk it as well. So I think he needs to do a little history. You're right, he's a historian, but he needs to know that Cedric could bring the heat too.
All right, a complete non sequitur. Well, it kind of fits in a little bit here, but I had a caller saying, you got Ben Wallace in the Hall of Fame. Why isn't Bill Laimbeer? And I said, you have a valid point, because Bill Laimbeer is a better player. They both made the All-Star team 4 times. Ben was a great off-the-ball defender, but he didn't offer anything else. Maybe rebounding. But if I said you could have Bill Laimbeer or Ben Wallace as a teammate,
in the 80s, 90s, or in today's basketball, because that matters. Because Bill Laimbeer would be great in today's game. He would be,
but
he would be great because
he was very good back then.
He could pick and pop, which is in today, big men are supposed to be, or required to be able to shoot threes now, right? So Bill Laimbeer would be great in today's game. He was great in the 80s and early 90s. But didn't Ben Wallace win Defensive Player of the Year 3 or 4 times?
Yeah.
I don't think Bill Laimbeer ever did that.
No, but Bill was a far better player than Ben Wallace.
He was a more skilled player. But before that, I in my book, I would put Robert Horry in the Hall of Fame before Bill Laimbeer. In my opinion, I would put Big Shot Bob before Bill Laimbeer. I would like to know total points between Bill Laimbeer and Robert Horry. Paulie, if you can look that up while we're talking.
Didn't Robert Horry average like 8 points a game?
Maybe.
For his career?
Maybe. But how many big shots did
Well, he did. He hit big shots, but you know why he was open? Because he had teammates who were double teamed. He hit the shot.
I'm not saying Bill Laimbeer shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame, but I'm just saying there's other guys that probably could move ahead of him.
Paulie, what did Horry average?
Okay, total points. Bill Laimbeer played 15 seasons and scored just under 14,000 points. Robert Horry played, I think, 16 seasons, and only scored 7,700 points.
Yeah.
Half.
Yeah.
Robert Horry shouldn't be in the Hall of
Fame. Hey, hit some big shots, Red. Hit some big shots. Bill Laimbeer is just not liked. And I'm sure that Jordan would throw a fit if Bill Laimbeer went into the Hall of Fame.
But that's not right, because I hated Bill Laimbeer just as much as Jordan. But I bet you Jordan would have wished he could have played with Bill Laimbeer.
Who did you hate the most out of the Pistons?
Who did I hate the worst?
Yeah.
Probably Mahorn. I wasn't really worried about Laimbeer because you know that clip of Robert Parrish beating down Bill Laimbeer in the Garden?
Yeah.
We had a center, Steve Stepanovich, from Missouri.
Out of Missouri, yeah.
Who did the same thing. So I was never worried about Bill Laimbeer because I know we had Steepo. But it was Mahorn, man. Mahorn had a crazy look in his eye all the time. And what's funny is, because Joe, I think I've told this story before, Joe Dumars, the gentle bad boy, would always tell me, Reg, I'm just telling you, and you always say, if you beat me off the dribble and get by me, just be careful because Mahorn's going to take you out. So man, get out of here. Get out of here.
Warn you about his own teammate. You know that the guy's a bad dude.
He's calling out his own team. He's ratting out his own teammate. Don't do it, Reg. Sure enough, blow by him and damn near missing a tooth. Damn near. Yes. So it was Mahorn I was more worried about as opposed to Bill Laimbeer. Though, I mean, Bill Laimbeer took shots as well, but Mahorn was a little different.
I'm wondering if we're not overrating, but over-expecting from Jason Tatum. I know he's first-team All-NBA, but are we expecting too much out of him on this big stage for him to be a truly great player? I think he's ascending to being a great player. I don't think he's a great player yet.
Well, I think people look at his resume on what he did versus Kevin Durant in the first round, what he did against Giannis in the semifinals, and how he performed at the highest stage versus Jimmy Butler in the culture of Miami. So I think it's fair and valid that we put him on that pedestal. You mentioned it. He's first team All-NBA. And I know he's, 24, 25 years old. And that is a lot of weight to carry. And especially on a storied franchise like Boston, who are known to have great small forwards like Larry Legend and Paul Pierce and Cedric Maxwell as well. So it's a lot to carry for a young player, but I think he's willing to accept that. If he didn't have that kind of series versus Kevin Durant, where they swept them, I think people wouldn't put him on that pedestal because, let's face it, he outplayed KD, who's a lot of people consider the best player in today's game right now. He outplayed him for 4 games. I think that's why we look at him a little bit different.
Talking to Reggie Miller, the Hall of Famer. What's the fundraiser you're doing, the Ranch Rally coming up Saturday?
I'm going to be on my bike a long time, 75 miles in Steamboat Springs, Colorado. It's going to raise money for 2 charities, really. It's Moots, who is my gravel bike carrier and maker, for the agricultural, for the farmers there in Steamboat, but they're also raising funds for HBCUs to get more diversity, inclusion in cycling. That's been my big initiative since I've been cycling, is to get more people, more women, more Asians, more indigenous, everyone. I want more people on bikes. I didn't grow up in the cycling world. Cycling can somewhat be expensive, but every kid should have the opportunity to have a bike and to cycle. And that's what we're kind of raising funds for in Colorado. So I'm taking the show on the road. It's going to be a great 75 miles on beautiful gravel roads in Steamboat, Colorado. So I'm really looking forward to it.
How would you do in the Tour de France?
Oh my God, I would get destroyed. Here's the thing, those are stage races. So that's like 21 days straight. I think there's 2 off days in between. There's just no way, because I would be dead after the first day. How can they ride 100 miles basically every day for 21 straight days? It's hard to even think about it.
I remember
It really is.
Lance Armstrong said that he got on his bike one time and he just kept riding, and then he realized he was 100 miles away. He goes, then you have to turn around and go back. Yeah, I know.
Go back. I mean, I don't understand how these dudes do it. Look, I love cycling and I love what it's done for me post-retirement. But some of these dudes and girls are crazy. Like, they just had a race in Kansas called Unbound Gravel, and it's a 200-mile gravel race. I don't understand how you can ride 200 miles and function after that, but they do.
Do you have a bell on your bike?
I do, and I let people know when I'm coming up on them. On your left, ding, 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 on your left. But the sad thing about it is everyone else has bell, and I hear that all the time because I'm one of the slower ones. And I hear bells all the time, and I was just in a race in Big Bear, and kids were passing me, like 13, 14, 15-year-olds. Mr. Miller, I'm on your left. Can you scoot over? Mr. Miller. I'm like, are you kidding me?
What happened with the Utah Jazz situation with Quinn Snyder? Where are they headed?
Look, I don't know, because you've got 2 players who, let's face it, they don't get along. Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert. They don't get along. And I think Quinn Snyder's voice has been lost. And he is a great coach. He's not a good coach. He is a great coach with new ideas, and he's a great motivator. But for whatever reason, he could not get these 2 guys on the same page. And it's sad because in today's game of how it's played, an inside and out presence like those 2 guys, for them not to be on the same page, I'm wondering who can come in and correct that. To me, one of them has to go, because I keep hearing that coming out of the camp. Rudy saying it's him or me. something has to happen.
Well, I wonder why Quinn decided to quit. You know, the Lakers' job was open. I don't know if that's,
He came out publicly and said he wasn't going to take the Lakers job because of what and how they treated Frank Vogel on the way out.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So he came out and said that he had zero interest in the Laker job.
Yeah, I just wonder. Like Donovan Mitchell, where could you see a landing spot for? There's obviously a lot of teams that love to have him. It's just, what do you give up to get? He's under contract for the next 4 years.
And he just signed a big deal.
Yeah,
Same with Rudy. Rudy has, I think, 3 more years on a big deal as well. Look, I think you got to get these guys in a room and see if they can figure it out. I don't think it can happen, but you got to at least try, right?
You played against Darvin Ham, right?
I did, and he was a teammate of mine at one point in Indiana. I think he's going to be great. I think his voice is going to resonate with the Lakers and the Lakers, the fan base. It'll be interesting because I listened to the words of how he spoke about Russell, and you've got to approach it with respect and not knowing what's going to happen up until training camp, because they could still end up trading Russ. But how he approached that press conference and mentioning Russ and his vision and pumping him up, that's what you got to do today. He's right. He is still one of the best players in the game. Does he have a lot of flaws? Absolutely. But if you can work around that and you still have LeBron, you still have AD, there's ways where you can make this work. It's going to be a challenge, don't get me wrong, but sometimes you just need a new voice, Theodore, and I think Darvin Ham is going to be great for the Lakers.
Are you going to text me after tonight's game, win or lose?
I am. I'm texting you tonight. Win or lose. And what's the line tonight? Who's favored?
Boston by 3.5.
This is game 3 is going to be great. When it's 1-1, it's going to be a dogfight because I can't wait to text you. Win or lose, I'm texting you.
Okay.
I just like you take forever to text me back. Now I know it's late on your end, and
Yeah.
but text a brother back in a timely fashion.
Thank you, Reg.
I appreciate it. Reginald Aloysius